G'day, I'm Ashley Davis. I want to show you a Claude code plugin that I wrote that is helping me use Claude more effectively. This is my expressive permissions plugin, available on my GitHub. That's Ashley Davis. Look for the expressive permissions Git repo. It's a plugin that adds a better permissions management system to Claude because Claude's built-in permission prompts are really annoying, really difficult to use, and really frustrating to use. It's for anyone who got sick of permissions fatigue. You'll know what I'm talking about if you've suffered from that. I wanted something that was more flexible and could handle more complex commands without constantly asking for my approvals. And the more you use my expressive permissions plugin, the more you will refine your permissions configuration and the more autonomous Claude will become. It automatically allows safe commands to run, it automatically blocks dangerous commands, and it falls back to asking you about everything else. So it keeps you safe while allowing Claude to always run for as long as possible without interrupting you for approvals. Let's look at some examples of actual permissions prompts from Claude, and I'll try to explain how my plugin is helpful. This command is adding a work tree to the current project. This should be okay. It should be okay for Claude to spin up a new work tree or multiple new work trees to do work in parallel on a particular repo. It's a simple command, and we want to allow this. It's not difficult to have this automatically allowed either with the built-in permission system or with my expressive permissions plugin. So this is an example of a simple command that doesn't require anything new. So I just wanted to start with something simple. But looking at the next command, we're starting to see something slightly more complicated. So this is doing a project setup, a bun install. It installs dependencies in the project. Now we want our project setup to be automatically allowed. That would allow Claude to kind of open up multiple work trees and get them all set up to do work without asking us. In this case though, there's no simple way to reliably allow this. I mean, this is a safe command, but there's no simple way to reliably allow it with the built-in permission system. So you can see here how the output of bun install is piped into the tail command. This means that a simple approval of bun install using Claude's permission systems won't work. You could write a separate rule for this that includes bun install plus the tail command, but that would only work for this command, and Claude's going to soon find a different command, a different combination of commands. It's going to tack something else on the end of the bun install, which will invalidate your rule. So for this to work, you have to be able to kind of allow any combination of bun install and any other command that's safe. So you're not going to do that. It's painful to kind of do that with the built-in Claude permission system. Okay, so this is a more complicated pipeline of commands. There's no way you can predict what combination of commands Claude is going to come up with next. So you can't write a rule with Claude's built-in permission system to allow a complicated command like this, because as soon as you allow one thing, it's going to come up with a different combination that isn't allowed. It's going to ask you about it. So, you know, we have to, every time we see something like this, we have to read and understand this entire sequence to know if it's really safe to allow this. Now, in this case, if you take the time to read this through, you can see that each of the subcommands in this big pipeline are read-only, and there's nothing dangerous. So we can just allow this. But you never know if Claude is going to try and bury some dangerous command in the middle of all this. So you actually have to read this whole thing every time it comes up. And you know, the longer that you're working in a day, the more tired you get, the more difficult it is to actually read and understand and approve these commands. And once permissions fatigue sets in, you'll start approving commands like this without really reading it, without really knowing if there's actually something dangerous hidden inside here. Here's another complicated command. I mean, this is running unit tests. That's all it's doing. Everything around this is safe, but the actual test command is kind of hidden in the middle of the command. So it's kind of difficult to parse this and difficult to spot, you know, why it's safe. But you still have to mentally parse this and check it. And Claude offers you no good way to write a rule that would allow this, you know, essentially safe command. Because, you know, if you did specifically target this with Claude's built-in permission system, it'll just come up with a different combination of this that you wouldn't have predicted. Now here's another entirely safe command. This is just compiling the code. But you can see that it's redirecting the output of the command to a log file, and it's using a randomly generated GUID in there. So of course you can't predict like what it's going to use next time it randomly generates a GUID. That's just not possible. So you can't have predicted how Claude would string this together. You couldn't have predicted what GUID it was going to use here. You couldn't have predicted that it was going to use a GUID in the output directory name. So it would be very difficult to write a rule that could allow this otherwise safe command in the built-in Claude's permission system. Here's another command. So this is just running tests again. You can easily see that it's running tests just from the first few words in this command. But again, it's redirecting the output to a log file, and there's a bunch of other commands stringed on here. It's piped into other commands. Very difficult to parse this mentally, but it's a safe command. Like, this should be allowed. All right, so I've shown you some of the kind of commands, the complicated commands that Claude can throw at you. I've tried to give you an idea of why it's difficult, frustrating, and ultimately not very effective to use Claude's built-in permission system to try to manage these commands. So this is where my expressive permissions plugin comes in. It solves these problems, and it makes it much easier to work with permissions for commands in Claude. And by the way, this all mostly works under Cursor as well, because it supports much of the same configuration as Claude. And so I use this both with Claude and Cursor, but mostly I'm working with Claude. So mostly that's what I've tested this with. But you should be good with Cursor as well. So it's available on my GitHub. You can see the installation instructions here. It's pretty simple to get started with. You can also clone this repo and hook it into your global Claude settings if you want to kind of use it locally. So the plugin works by taking every command that Claude throws at it, and it parses it into an abstract syntax tree, or an AST as it is usually known. You can see an example command and tree structure on screen. The plugin walks the tree structure and applies rules to each subcommand, and this allows us to write more granular permission rules against subcommands. Let me show you an example of some simple rules. So on the README here from the GitHub page, you can see here a rule that automatically allows a git status. So no matter where in the command the git status is buried, this is going to pluck that out into a part of the abstract syntax tree, run this rule against it, and decide that part of the tree is allowed. And so it'll do that for the whole tree. And if any part of the tree comes up as deny or ask, it's going to deny it, or it's going to prompt you to approve it. If all parts of the tree come up allow, it's going to allow it, and it's not going to come back and ask you for permission. Following that is an example here of denying a command. So we're automatically denying an rm minus rf. So no matter where in a command, the rm minus rf is buried, it might be kind of in the middle, tacked on the end, where it's not easy to see, it's automatically always going to deny it. So there's no way for Claude to go around this. This is all built in the plugin using hooks, and there's no way that Claude can ignore using those hooks. And when it passes this, or a command with an rm minus rf in it, into the expressive plugin hook, in this case, it's going to automatically deny it. So even though some parts of the command might be allowed automatically by some rules, this rule here would automatically deny it. So there's very many different ways you can use this. You can match against the working directory. You can match against positional arguments. You can match against environment variables. So that's why I call it the expressive permissions plugin, because you've got many different ways to kind of expressively say that the conditions under which certain commands are allowed or denied. There's a lot more to it, of course. There's a documentations page. You can get to this from the README. But this links in all the documentation there. You can understand better how to configure it, how to get started, how to do all the things that you want to do with it. There's guides for debugging your permissions, troubleshooting it when things go wrong. In my personal Claude code configuration, which this is the configuration that I use globally on my computers, that's available on GitHub. You can find a bunch of example permissions files here. So lots of examples on how to set up your permissions here if you want to look at it. For example, let's look at the permissions for using Git in read-only mode, all sorts of Git read-only commands here that are automatically allowed. So this is how I allow, lots of different aspects of the Git command to be used without coming back to ask me if I want to approve it. These will automatically be allowed. Anything else that Git does, like commits, pushes, whatever, it will default to ask. So it will come back and ask me for those things that I haven't specified. But for anything that I automatically want to allow, it will allow for me. So there's lots of different commands here that I have been building up my permissions. So the more I use this, the more permissions I configure, the more kind of things that are safe that I automatically allow. And Claude is becoming progressively more autonomous for me. So it's coming back and asking me less and less to do, the basic read-only things that it should always be allowed to do without asking. I've got one last thing to show you. This is the audit log. Let me just find what I'm looking for here. How this is useful. Here it is. Here's one. The audit log shows you every command that was matched against the rules. Why the decision came back as allow, ask, or deny. And it also shows you what commands were executed. So it's a really useful resource just to know what Claude has done, as it's going through and running all the commands that it's running. Here's an example of a command that didn't match. So this would have come back, whatever sub command this awk command was embedded in, it would have come back and asked me for approval because I have not allowed awk to be automatically approved. I may allow it one day. I'm not sure about it yet because I always want to know what is happening when awk is being used, and so that always comes back and asks for my permission. Now there are plenty of things here that are automatically allowed. Let me just find one. So here's an example. This is a good example actually. So we're running tests against the CLI here, but it's automatically allowed this. So it's matched a command. I've said that basically any bun running any script from the package.json is okay, and so it's automatically allowed that. Now you can also, in the audit log, you can also see every command that's ever run on this. Well, it's per project, so this is not on the whole machine. This is per project, and a sample that I've taken for one of my projects. But you can see here the execute section of the audit log. So it's kept a log of what has happened, what Claude has run. So if you ever get into a position where you think, like, what the hell did I just approve? You can actually come back and look at what Claude actually ran. And, it's just a great way to keep a history of what happened. So that's it. I just wanted to show you my Better Permissions plugin for Claude and give you an idea of how I'm using it to be more effective with Claude. You can use it to automatically allow anything that's safe, deny anything that's dangerous, and Claude will operate more and more autonomously as you flesh out your permissions configuration, but in a way that's safe for you and your computer. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.